Good morning, everyone. It's November 11th, 2017, Remembrance Day. I'm going to talk about, as best as I can, or my recollection as I can, about setups. Setups come in many forms and many shapes and whatever, and this is really geared for TIs. Now, I just did a video before this about attempts at setups within my family home by GS family members that live one floor above me. Their genre of different skits and whatever is becoming more and more limited as I become more and more conversant with their particular pathology and what they do. Now, this is not going to be about them, but I'm going to reiterate and go one step further, especially for those that live in apartments more than in their own home. But doesn't really matter, but it involves always with other people who are GS perps, handlers, whatever. First thing is, if someone within a family household is perping you and has asked you to go into their space, do not do so verbally. Get everything by text or by written note. Because they can just say, if it's a phone call, oh, they didn't say that, unless you're recording it. And I want to put in a footnote to this. To record phone calls, you can do it with an app, but it has to be on a network, not internet. Apparently it doesn't work. If it does, then what was said in the verbal or the blurb was not correct. I will try at some point today. Now, having said that, I started to think about all the different things that I have gone through, but also expand upon it. Now, with landlords who are GS, they will try all their best to gain access to your apartment. And they do quite a bit of this when you leave the apartment. And I'm going to be very straight up with you. It will be incumbent upon you to actually put in cameras that are not visible to the naked eye. And that takes a little bit of study and learning to how to do these things. You know, you put them in places where nobody really thinks about. And sometimes you have to go a little bit overboard with it. In my particular case, I knew that they put cameras, audio, whatever, way down the line. I was just not conversant with GS way back in 2011 as I am now. That's one thing. The other thing is that with the cameras in your apartment, it can also really supply evidence for you that someone's entered. And police are very good in entering with collusion from the landlord. It goes for your cars as well. Having said that, yes, you can have DVRs in the front and the back and whatever, but you have to have something that is hidden that can record a setup, drugs, illegal contraband, etc. It's hard to imagine that this is where we're going. Now back to my relatives, and I'm just going to reiterate what their pathology was this week. It started with last Monday, and you can see it in my videos for those days. I think the one I posted today, I said November 7th was the beginning of the week, but it's not. It was November 6th. You can see what happened. But last night, which was the 10th, was kind of interesting for me. Any services that my relatives, as landlord, okay, that will affect my space, I have to comply with it, okay? So anyways, they told me that duct cleaners were coming, and indeed they did come. They did the whole house, and that, they did my apartment, and it was evidenced by the relative there who came in with that individual. But what was strange is, okay, I just turned off my messaging system because I only have the internet phone. And I checked it later, and it was about 6:30, mind you. It wasn't that late. But a family member that lives outside of the home says to me, the duct cleaners had called her. They were outside of the home or something like that. And I thought to myself, why would they call her? Why don't they call the owners of the home? And I found it strange because I know that there's always someone on the premises. Where was this going to lead to? It was another excuse for me to go into their space and get caught. I countered that this morning, and I just said, you know what? I did a video, which I posted, of course, and I actually said it loud. I knew they were listening, and I don't care. That's the point of it. And I actually told the owner to please submit to me in text or written a note about entering their space. Now, setups come in all shapes and sizes, okay? Especially for those that, and I'm going to really keep count on this too. Let's say you're cashing out at a cashier. Make sure you have a receipt on you. Doesn't matter. Okay? Be careful. There's some services that, they'll say, do you want a receipt? Yes, have a receipt. Everything is receipted, especially for goods. That's one thing. The other thing is that, I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes you'll see a fight on the street. Don't get involved with it. Or intervene. Don't intervene in anything that would require you to even put a call into the police. Because by my own experience, when I called the police way back in, I think it was 2011, if I'm not mistaken, to report an accident on the street, I got grilling by the police. Me in my apartment, observing, and I'm getting grilled. And that ended up with detectives wanting to come into my home to ask me questions. There was a whole bunch of silly things, and I knew that this was a setup. Then this woman detective sent me, she left me a message on the phone, and I called her, and I said, please send me a text to this blah blah email address. She never did. So I was even back then in that summer 2011, even without understanding a lot of things, I knew that this was a setup. Now, when you go into public places, setting aside all the receipts and whatever, I'm going to be honest with you, record everything. And when you record, don't get out your little cell phone and put it up here and put it up there. Discreetly video with audio. Because sometimes you're going to get rude service for nothing. The other is that in public places like bars and whatever, be very careful with people around you. Because let's say you spilt beer. They said you spilt beer. You can get into a lot of trouble for assault or whatever. Don't back down in terms of your attitude. No, don't. But be very careful of certain things. Setups can happen on the street. Let's say someone bumped into you. Don't say anything. Move away as quickly as possible. These are the bare necessities, because setups come in so much different shapes and forms. But for me, the setups that I see is like that really we have to be careful with is be careful like about receipts, be careful about getting, being sure of having authorization in written form, and be very diligent in really considering cameras in your apartment. In homes, that's another thing. If you're having problems with breaking and entering, yeah, but everything has to be very discreet in terms of where you put your cameras. This is not a game. It's a game for them, but it's not a game for us. It's a life and death situation. The life and death situation is the premise of what I said before in another video. It's their scapegoating that they want to set us up. They want to deem us mentally ill if we talk about stuff in a way that... I'm not saying you don't talk. You have to talk about it, but in a way that is deemed as their escape clause. That what are they talking about? This, that? No, you have to be careful of what you're saying, and I learned that as well. I'm going to put it to you this way. A setup can even be a conversation. I'll tell you something. There's this lady who I defriended, a relative of the relative, and in the sense that I don't provide any conversation of any great worth to her at this point. I talk generally, and I try to be polite, but she will, let's say, send a text, and she'll say, well, blah, 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 and she'll want you to respond to her. And 9 out of 10 is like negatively. Okay, if you know, they're waiting for that negative thing. And it goes right on your profile. Because these people feed in to the system, to the profile. And when you stop responding to their nonsense, they up their ante in any shape or form. Some of it can be imaginative, but basically it's really based on the fact of what the demographics are, of what the set protocols are to set someone up. Conversation. Stay out of personal stuff. Stay out of your trying to explain a point, because they ain't going to listen. And a setup could come down the line where they'll say, well, you said this and you said that. That is not a setup in the fact that you're going to go to jail for it, okay, or an institution. No, it's just a waste of energy, of conversation that will bring back more conversation down the line. They've got very good memories, because everything you say and do is exactly what they will bring back in the future. These people are, they're con artists. They'll get onto you even emotionally. A setup also is like, they'll try to demand from you a return of reciprocity of emotion, that, oh yes, you love them, you whatever. I'm going to tell you, although this could involve a personality conflict, this is something that they're very good at with the guilt trips and whatever. That's a setup, okay? A setup will lead you to drop your guard and then get tricked again. It's an ongoing battle. This is a true battlefield. You know, it's a true battlefield. And I'm not going to sweeten the pot for anybody, especially if you're a true TI. And a true TI, I'm going to be honest with you, of GS has all the components of the GS program. Now, it doesn't mean that you get the whole kit and caboodle. No. You'll probably get the physical gang stalking with all of its telltale details. Others get that plus the energy weapons. It goes on, but I don't really think you can say you belong to the GS unless you have the protocol of GS as we understand it. Okay? I believe that there are other types of targets in different programs, but not of the same genre that a GS individual would have. You know, I don't want to preclude the fact that, people are not targets of something. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in this world, and a lot of people have short-term targeting for retribution. It doesn't matter. But a true GS TI has, almost, let's say, 90% of the protocol. And it's very important to remember because, you get into conversations with people and you start to see the fabric of what they're trying to say is not exactly to the measure of what you understand. Again, they are a TI of a particular program. Maybe that could be a component of GS. So anyways, as I said, this world is not what we see it as. And I'm going to be blunt with you. It's a tiresome project to be always on your guard. But when you're in your apartment, your home, just relax. Try to do your best to relax and to learn how to sort of get out of the burn element of what they're doing. That's why I just don't even answer my phone anymore. I know exactly who I want to talk to, and I do so. And I keep that sort of under wraps. Anyways, to all TI, stay safe.